Without further ado, I think we'll get started. I'd like to, first of all, thank you guys for attending tonight. You're participating in one of the great traditions of our amazing democracy here. And that is to meet candidates to elect to represent us and make decisions on our behalf. Whether it's a local municipality, a state, a federal, each of these offices holds great responsibility. And it's our responsibility as citizens to elect people that will represent our needs and opinions. I'm Dr. Ernie Ward. It's great to see so many new faces here. We've only lived on this little piece of island for 26 years, so we're getting to know the place. But tonight is an opportunity for us to get to know the political opinions, the direction, the vision for our island by these candidates who seek our votes. Now, tonight the ground rules are pretty straightforward. Each candidate will be given a question, and they will have 60 seconds to respond. At the end of 60 seconds, candidates, you will hear time, wrap up your answer immediately. You will have 5 seconds. At that time, if you continue to talk, unfortunately, I will have to interrupt you. We must be respectful of all the candidates and allow each to have equitable time. Audience, I will also ask you to refrain from any unnecessary applause or other forms of outbursts. It's very important because part of the democratic process is civil discourse. And while we all may have different opinions, different visions even for our island, we need to be respectful of how we interact with each other. So I'm going to ask you to please be on your best behavior, as I know you will, because we're all citizens of Ocean Isle Beach. So, without further ado, what will happen next is I will randomly reach into one of two buckets. These buckets will have questions that were submitted by many of you here and others in our community to ask to the candidate. I will read the question, and each candidate will be given 60 seconds to answer, at which time we will go immediately to the next person, okay? Everybody clear on the ground rules?
Yeah, I assume, or we're going to start with the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance as we normally do with town meetings. Please, everyone, join me for that if you're okay with that. Everyone? Is that a yes?
That's a yes.
Okay, everyone join me in the Lord's Prayer, please. Stand. Our Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. As a reminder, during the Lord's Prayer, we had an interruption, so you may want to turn off your phone to be respectful of the Lord, perhaps. Okay, so let's get started. Candace, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Please be sure to speak clearly and very close to the mic if you can't hear you. First question goes to everyone. And again, these questions were submitted by audience members. I will read them as written.
Are you going to identify the person that submitted the question?
These are submitted anonymously.
Everything's anonymous.
Everything is anonymous.
There's a name and an address attached to it, but that's not going to be read.
I don't know if that's fair. I mean, people are wanting to know who asked the question.
I do not have any names of people who ask questions.
Come up with that, so let's move
Candidates, candidates, are you asking for the names of the people who submitted the question?
Not necessarily.
Do we have any objections to reading these as anonymous questions from any of the candidates?
No.
They're supposed to be anonymous.
Okay, without objection from any of the candidates, I think it stands. Thank
Arnie,
you.
you have a hand in the back?
No question.
Question in the back?
Yes, sir. Can we know who's running for what office real fast? Like, are we supposed to know that beforehand? Yeah, there's two of them.
Can we know who's running for office?
It's a fair point, yes. In fact, yes, we would encourage you, we don't have time tonight due to the number of questions and candidates, but if you look here from Suzanne to Mr. Athey, Grantham, we have Harrison, we have Hughes, we have Rowell, they are all running for town commission, okay? The two mayoral candidates are going to be Simmons and Smith. Okay, so it's a fair question. There are no openings.
No, two town commission seats.
There's two council
Two council.
seats open.
For two council seats, that's correct, yes. Okay, but for bios, we're going to have to ask you to refer, we just simply, this is not a forum, yeah. So it's a good question, fair question. So, all right, to all of the candidates, with Ocean Isle Beach evolving to a more residential versus rental population, how will you balance the needs of full-time residents with needs of rental owners and the associated Ocean Isle Beach revenue stream? We'll start with you, Suzanne.
Thank you. I do think that there are some examples of our full-time population growing on the island as more retirees come in our direction from southeastern Brunswick. Still, during the most recent town meeting, we found that 23% of rentals had gone up and VRBO had gone up by 47%. So I really think we're in flux. So what is that balance? On one side, accommodations taxes help everybody on OIB, beach renourishment, park construction, beautification, and public parking and beach access. Tourists also bring us businesses and restaurants and public parking and trash and yard pickup. Generally, residents are frustrated. Their frustration is linked to increased building, traffic, parking needs, strains on our infrastructure, and safety concerns. To address the concerns of our residents, the town needs to formulate a strategic plan to manage the growth in a timely and a professional manner. Our plan would revisit.
Thank you. Tom Athey?
That question is really one of the exact reasons I decided to run for commissioner. I believe that full-time residents must be the highest priority, followed by homeowners and business owners. Far too often, it appears the focus is on renters and the revenue they generate during the rental season. When decisions are made and their voices and concerns are factored in, amongst the 2,500 plus homeowners, including 800 voters, the opinion of renters and visitors are given the same weight as homeowners. Without analyzing the survey results closely enough to distinguish between the difference, homeowners versus renters may result in giving a false impression that the majority of homeowners support a specific project. There are a number of rental house owners who plan on living full-time in the same rental house here on the island when the time is right to do so. Therefore, that group of homeowners should also be heard and a significant weight be given to their opinion. The 2021 and 2022 budget showed the general.
Thank you. Mr. Grantham?
Yes, sir. I'm going to have to take a different tack here. I read the question earlier, reviewed it, and the simple fact of the matter is I have to challenge the premise. Totally. I believe the premise is totally wrong. I went to the resident experts on the island, the ones who are involved in the rental program and in sales, and I can't find any data to support the fact that rental is growing versus residential as a percentage. As a matter of fact, if anything, it may be the opposite. I went to everyone I know to ask that question. Honestly, I cannot answer that in good faith because I don't believe that the premise is true.
Ms. Harrison?
Well, I do think this goes in phases. Sometimes the rental population is higher, and then sometimes the residential, the permanent residents. I saw this in Island Park. We lived down there for 20 years. When the development first went in, it was all rental homes. As those houses got paid off, they took them off the rental market. You had less renters. Right now, we are in such a growth mode with these new developments that I don't think we have a problem with the income stream of the rentals going down. As Suzanne said, our accommodations tax is running over 25% of last year, which was a good year. We're seeing more development coming. Usually with new homes, it's it's rentals, not permanent residents. Now, permanent residents add to the island. They are the eyes and ears of the island. And I know when I moved to the East End, down to Maritime Place, I was the first permanent resident in that neighborhood. And they were glad to see us come. We are the eyes and ears of the island. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
Yes, my priorities first lie with the residents, then all property owners, followed by business owners, then tourists. I believe that our community's needs should always be met before our wants. Our average age is 65 and medical issues need to be met quicker. Therefore, we need to add paramedic firefighter to each shift and a quick response vehicle equipped for these paramedics firefighters. Instead of spending $3 to $5 million of our tax monies on a new oversized community center, which is a want or an amenity, we should spend it on expanding our emergency services and beach warning flag system. I believe meeting the needs of our residents and property owners will also benefit our tourists, thereby allowing us to advertise the safety of our beach to attract more tourists and the revenue stream that it will generate.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell?
Yes, I'm kind of like DB on this. I don't think we're evolving into a more residential situation at this point in time. There's over 3,200 residential units on this island, and about 400 of those, assuming there's 2 persons per residential unit, that computes to about 12.5% of residential. So again, I don't think we're evolving at this point. I think we're still heavily residential. But our staff here and the commissioners do present to the property owners here, the permanent residents. About 75% of our staff's time is spent answering questions or dealing with the permanent residents here. So again, I don't think we're evolving, but I think our staff does a great job at handling the permanent residents' wants and needs.
Thank you. And now we'll move to the mayoral candidate, Simmons.
As I have expressed to all of the individuals and groups I've met with during my campaign, I view the island as 3 specific groups of people: homeowners, business owners, and tourists. It is my belief that if we as a town, both elected officials and administration, keep the first 2 groups happy, we will be the desirable place that both visitors and retirees want to come. We don't need to pander to tourists, rather fulfill our obligation to our tax base of homeowners. Meeting the needs of our full-time residents begins with including them in planning, projects, and programs, listening to their concerns and acting on their needs. It is my goal as mayor to be very inclusive rather than exclusive.
Thank you. And our incumbent, Mayor Debbie Smith.
Yes, well, Wayne statistics kind of tell the story. You know, there are about 3,400 houses on this beach and about 840 registered voters. I think it's the job of the elected officials here to serve all of the taxpayers of Ocean Isle Beach. The residents that are here, we see more. We probably do more for you than we do the non-resident homeowners, but we're charged to serve all of the property owners. The accommodations tax has grown in the last couple of years. I don't know that that will continue at the pace it has. But that represents almost equal to the ad valorem taxes that we pay into this town. So that accommodations tax money does come back. It goes a lot to our beaches. It goes to our public parks. It's done a lot for this community. And like I say, without it, our taxes would double.
Great. And candidates, congratulations. You guys did a fantastic job managing the clock. I can't thank you enough. I've been in that seat. It's tough. Well done. Next question. And again, these are randomly selected. These are from members of our community. So they're being read as they were written. This is to everyone. After the last hurricane, which made landfall on Ocean Isle and caused major damage by both flooding, wind, and fire, the island was open to visitors within 4 days. The storm hit on Sunday night, and the island was open to all on Thursday. The present administration has a history of fast openings, knowing that the majority of people coming are gawkers or looters, not beachgoers. Full-time residents and homeowners barely had time to assess their situations before non-islanders began slowing driving through all parts of the island. Going forward, how do you plan to balance the needs of residents against the need for legitimate tourism following a natural disaster? And once again, we will begin with Suzanne Adams. Sorry, we could start with Tom Athey, please.
Following any hurricane or national disaster, I don't believe there's ever a need for tourism on the island until it's secured. Every homeowner should have a windshield sticker that's issued by the town that allows access to the island. Only after emergency personnel have determined it's safe to do so. Full-time residents, out-of-town homeowners should be the only ones allowed on the island once it's determined to be safe. With over 2,500 homes on the island and the majority of the owners hours away and quite possibly unable to get to the island due to flooded roads and fallen trees, their homes must be protected until homeowners can secure their homes or are confident they are secure. I recognize homes that have been damaged will need assistance from contractors to secure their homes and repair damage. Any contractor needed on the island by a homeowner must meet law enforcement before allowed access to the island. The contractor should be required to show valid identification, give the address of the house needing repair, the name and the telephone of the owner requesting the repair, and have officers verify through the homeowner that the request was made before allowing access to the island. All homeowners must have confidence or preference.
Thank you. Mr. Grantham?
Okay. We've been property owners here for almost 30 years. Had a number of cottages before we moved here permanently 20 years ago. So we've been through a lot of the hurricane scenarios like so many people here have. We know what it's like, okay? We've been through it again firsthand. I agree with so much of what my esteemed colleague, Mr. Athey, here said just now. Have to agree with that. But what I would say, I challenge the part again. I feel like a naysayer in a way about, it sounds like somebody's challenging the fact that the town opened too quickly. I don't necessarily agree with that at all. I mean, as soon as power and water and sewage are restored, it is imperative that we allow our homeowners to get back into their property as quickly as possible, to assess the damage, to keep the damage from getting worse, to line up repairs, to line up insurances and all the things that go with that. So again, the only thing I would say is that.
Thank you. Ms. Harrison? Ms. Harrison?
I think this is a situational issue. Every hurricane is different. Some hurricanes are wind, some are water, and some are surge like we saw last year. Yes, the homeowners do need to get on the island as quick as they can after the utilities are restored. I know myself, I leave pets when I have to leave for a hurricane. I need to get on there. But more important, you need to get on and assess your house and your damage. After Isaias last year, my house escaped damage. For the first 2 days, I spent the days going and seeing anybody who requested their house to be checked that did not live here. And I had to tell them, you need to come, you don't need to come. But if your roof is exposed or you have a window broken out, you need that contractor to get there and shore that up. And that's where the stickers come in. And I think they've instituted a new method this year for homeowners and for contractors. Also, again, it's the permanent homeowners' eyes and ears. See who's on the island. If you suspect someone suspicious, report it.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
Yes, our property owners' safety, well-being, and property rights are a top priority during a hurricane situation. Being a property owner who chose not to evacuate last time and was assisting several property owners with cleanup, I found current leaders' decisions appalling. Depending on the severity of damage, I believe that only property owners should be allowed onto the island for up to a week. Only approved contractors who have previously applied for a permit long before the storm arrives should be allowed on the island. Inland flooding from some of our recent storms has made it difficult for some of our non-resident homeowners to come and check on their properties. They need to be given time to do this. We are a tourism town, but our residents, property owners, and business owners take priority over tourists.
Thank you. Mr. Rao?
Yes, I cannot agree at this point that we opened up too soon. I think people were clamoring to get back over here to check out their properties, and I do realize there were some looters, but our police department handled that. I think in future years, and again, as Susan said, I believe the Hurricanes are all different. Every one of them is different. Different levels of damage, different levels of flooding, different levels of rain, whatever. So I do think we've had some discussions with the police department on increased enforcement to keep looters away, or to make certain that they're not here going around and delving into people's properties. On a lighter note, a lot of these junk dealers sure did haul off a bunch of junked up refrigerators, so we were glad to see them anyway. So thank you.
Amen to that. And now our two candidates for mayor. We'll begin with Lee Simmons.
I will reiterate, I see three groups of people on Ocean Isle: homeowners, business owners, and tourists. While we may be a tourist-driven economy, myself included, the onus is on me to serve the people who elect me, the homeowners that I serve. Second to this group are our business owners. I fully understand the last hurricane, Isaias, occurred during the first week of August, with barely a few weeks left in our rental season while in the midst of a global pandemic. The timing couldn't have been worse. This does not and cannot allow us to make poor decisions in helping our residents recover from devastating flood and fire and allow visitors on this island before we are prepared. I will promise to try my best to balance all mitigating circumstances, remembering to always keep homeowners and business owners as my top priority.
Thank you. And Mayor Smith.
Yes, we have always re-entered in an orderly fashion. Homeowners are first. Once the island is secure, public utilities are back up and operational, then the homeowners are allowed to come on for a reasonable length of time before any other people are allowed. But I can tell you, this town hall is inundated with people wanting to get on the island. Only way to stop it is to have somebody at that bridge 24 hours a day. So when the police and fire have already been there for 2 or 3 days, 24 hours, keeping people from going over, to ask them to stay for another week to keep anybody from going over. And if there is major damage, we all have roofs, we all have windows out, and there are contractors that come from further away than normal to service us and to do our repairs. So it's a very big process to close and remain closed. So when the island's open, it's safe, it's secure, and the police are better at monitoring looters.
Should I go? I agree with several people saying that this was situational, and I wasn't there to help make or weigh in on that decision. Certainly the safety of life and certainly security of property is of utmost importance. I was really proud of the town to actually close at all. Many of our local beaches did not, and they were criticized quite a bit. I know that town leaders, our fire and police went all across the island to check it out afterwards, as well as our sewer and water to ensure things were functional to allow renters back on the island. I don't know the rationale for waiting. However, as this question suggests, most likely owners of rentals were pushing for reopening because they had already suffered quite a loss to revenue due to COVID-19. These decisions are difficult, have moving parts, and are open to scrutiny after the fact. Monday morning quarterbacking.
Thank you. Right. Our third question. It's a long one. Settle in.
What is that?
A vote was held, and you may want to take notes on this one. A vote was held in the June Board of Commissioners meeting to approve the 2021-2022 town budget. An expense item was on the agenda that had not appeared in any meeting minutes from the Board of Commissioners' monthly meetings or any budgetary meeting minutes. This item was Resolution 2021-18. It was to amend a section of the employee benefits policy regarding retirement stipends. It was to add a third form of employment retirement compensation in the form of a stipend to the 401k and pensions plans that are already provided. The stipend was to be paid to an employee that retired several years ago. Additionally, there was discussion about the fact that this may need to be discussed further and was then passed unanimously. there's a question here. What is your viewpoint on stipends and stipends being paid to past employees? What is your stand on resolutions affecting the taxpayer dollars being presented and passed without an opportunity for consideration and input from the public? And Mr. Grantham, you have the high honor of answering that first.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a question I was hoping to avoid at all costs. So thanks very much.
I just draw them out of a box.
Not having been part of that, part and parcel to that at the time, I don't feel very qualified to answer that question because I feel like there are a lot of missing parts there, a lot of missing pieces that I'd like to know the details on before I try to pass judgment on something as critical as that. In terms of stipends, as a rule, if it's for the right purpose, I can agree with the stipend. Generally speaking, something that's retroactive, I would definitely question, may have problems with that. I'd just like to know, again, more of the details about that. I want to go back to the other issue, which basically speaks to transparency, I believe. Sounds like to me. And that is, I just know this town government, I know this board that you've had for so long, and I can tell you that there has been total transparency. I feel very strongly about that.
Ms. Harrison.
Thank you. I agree with DB. I was not here. I am not really privy to the details of this question and why this question came up. You know, maybe there was an auxiliary reason why a stipend was given. I don't really know. I mean, if you're getting a 401k and a retirement plan, you're doing pretty good for this day and age. I just don't know. I wasn't part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes.
Well, since we already had two separate ways for our employees to have a retirement plan, I feel it was unnecessary to add this third way. The town of Stallings passed a stipend program for their employees and discovered the long-term cost to the town budget and then elected to stop the stipends. However, they were still obligated to pay the stipend to all employees that were employed during the program. The amount, the duration, and, as was this case, the retroactivity can make stipends a severe hardship on a town budget in the future. Retroactively allowing former employees to benefit from a recent granted stipend raises many questions, and the main one being why. The way this stipend suddenly appeared with no prior knowledge by the public, and then when Mayor Smith pulled her kind of Nancy Pelosi moment, declaring that it needed to be passed and then the commissioners could review it later, really raises even more questions about this.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell.
Yes, I'd like to respond to that. First of all, we're not the town of Stallings, we're the town of Ocean Isle Beach. The stipends are a recruiting tool that we use, especially in today's environment, employment environment. That was why this stipend was brought up and passed, is to use as a recruiting tool. Especially in the police area, fire area, that is a very difficult area to recruit in anymore. People just don't want to be in law enforcement. That's a fact. It's a fact. My son is a captain. He's looking forward to very soon to retiring. So, but that's the reason for the stipend. And the stipend was part of the budget. There was a formal budget hearing in June, which is included in the budget. Everyone is invited to attend those budget workshops or budget forums. So we were transparent on that. It was in the budget.
Thank you. And our candidates for mayor, Lee Simmons.
I feel like municipalities must be very cautious with stipends being issued, particularly issued retroactively to employees. Many cities across our country have almost bankrupted themselves by offering stipends to employees, and most have ceased to use them as part of a compensation package. Some of the exceptions to that are stipends used for education, where a municipality will pay for continuing education classes, pay part of a tuition. That's a very finite amount of money that is not ad infinitum. I have to say I'm not a proponent of stipend for employees, but more importantly, I'm not a proponent of how this compensation addition came to fruition. Why was it necessary to be decided on at that specific meeting rather than tabled for further discussion as one of our commissioners had asked for?
Thank you. And Debbie Smith.
This was a stipend paid as a retention and employment tool. Many of our municipalities in this area pay for health insurance for retirees up to a certain age. We do not, because it's very, very expensive to do that, and we chose not to do that. This was discussed at a budget workshop. That's why it was in the budget to begin with. The resolution is just a housekeeping issue that we had to do to get it into our personnel policy. This was one employee. It's $250 a month, folks. It's not like it's a lot. For a max of 5 years, and once they reach the age of Medicare, it stops. So if you only have 2 years from retirement to Medicare, then you don't get it, but for those 2 years. So, but it was for employment and retention of our employees.
Thank you. Suzanne Adams?
Okay, I did research a little bit. The stipend was to cover continued health insurance costs for 5 years or until retirees are Medicare eligible, whichever comes first. Cost is $250 a month with a maximum of $15,000 over 5 years. The individual that was retroactively served by the stipend will be eligible for Medicare in 1 year. I think it was fair and consistent to include him on the stipend. The stipend was recommended by administration to compensate for the town's inability to pay into the state system to secure health insurance for new retirees. Our county and neighboring municipalities have such state group plans. Town executives and budget staff are tasked to recommend salary and incentives that will retain a strong workforce. We need to support them in doing their jobs. Today, it's exceptionally difficult for municipalities to hire and incentivize employees to stay. With COVID.
Thank you. And Tom Athey.
I did some research as well. Matter of fact, I met with a number of employees here with the town, and their understanding of the stipend was that it was to assist them to carry over after retirement for medical benefits. As a retired law enforcement officer, I got a supplement from the state of North Carolina that carried me through Social Security age. Unfortunately, that sort of dropped off. But I do believe that the town must attract and recruit and retain most qualified employees, and the most effective way to do that is to offer competitive salaries above the average market rate for each position. And I support a merit pay system that recognizes employees who meet predetermined goals during a specific rating period, and their increases are all based on performance. I also support a tiered longevity pay system where the amount of pay received is based on number of years of service, and is structured so the employees are incentivized to remain employed here to receive that longevity pay. And I would suggest the pay is given during the Christmas holiday season.
Thank you very much.
That happens.
Next question. Okay, we will begin with Susan Harrison on this one. Much shorter, a little more brevity here. What are the strengths that you bring to the board?
The strengths I bring to this board, will bring to the commission, are I'm a leader, I'm interested in the town, and I have a specific skill set that the town can use. I'm a civil engineer, graduated from Virginia Tech. I have over 20 years experience in planning, structural, and environmental work. I also led the YWCA of Central Virginia, one of the largest and most successful in the country. With the big projects coming up, I just did some research into the Bald Head terminal groin that they have already built. That project, when they got in the middle of it, it needed to be bigger, it needed more material, and it was off schedule. And those are the kind of things that I could bring to the table to help oversee for the town to make these decisions as they go along in these specific projects. I'm also in favor of parking and traffic control improvements. I don't think anyone could argue with those. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes.
Well, I am not a career politician and will bring fresh new ideas to the Board of Commissioners that will meet the needs of our community and not the wants. It is imperative a community's needs are efficiently met prior to fulfilling wants and amenities. I have served many leadership roles throughout my life and career as a national board certified teacher, writing educational grants, establishing creative new educational programs to enhance the curriculum, and being detail-oriented have given me the experiences needed to research and plan for our town's growth and needs. Giving back and being involved in my town is very important to me. Working with multiple local volunteer groups has taught me the various avenues of collaboration needed between the town and those organizations to ensure success for both parties.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell.
Yes, first of all, let me just say I love serving this community. I love this community. I love the people in it. It's a wonderful place to live and work. I don't think anybody can argue with that, and that's why we're all here. The strengths that I bring to this board are my background in governmental accounting. Since I was I am a retired CPA, and I do keep my certificate current. My background was in auditing municipalities, so that's why I can serve here and know what government does, how it functions. The other strengths that I have are I believe in planning for the future. I believe that's imperative, especially in today's environment with the growth we're experiencing here in Brunswick County. That's one of my strengths, I think, is being able to plan and look ahead and see what we need to do and how to do it. Again, my financial background as a CPA has been a tremendous experience to be able to help our finance officer, Daisy Ivy, in planning, and especially during the budget process, things of this nature. So again.
Okay, and before we move to the mayor, let's continue with the board members here. Suzanne Adams.
Sure. As BCC president, I have diverse strengths to bring to the board. I led an organization that operates under the regulations of the North Carolina General Statutes, and that's similar to municipalities. I have decades of experience, and I hate to say that, in budget management, security grants, long-range strategic planning, personnel, facility, construction maintenance, campus safety, and board service. I positively support current projects on OIB and will maintain a prudent, focused momentum to bring these projects to fruition. I will move the town forward, not backward. My experience in communicating and collaborating with local citizens, county leaders, NC legislators, and other state and federal resources will be an asset to the town in formulating a strategic plan to manage issues created by growth. I have no agendas. I will make decisions based on what is best for OIB and maintaining the lifestyle we currently enjoy.
Thank you. Mr. Athey.
Honesty, integrity, and a strong work ethic are only some of the strengths I bring to the board. I also bring 40 years of public service experience, including serving my country as United States Marine, 25 years with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and 12 years with the United States Department of Justice. I bring the ability to make hard decisions and the integrity to stand behind them. I've been in leadership positions all my life, and I will be a leader on the board once elected. I bring a new perspective to the board, unafraid to challenge others to defend their positions when it's in conflict with the facts. I bring the knowledge and experience I have as a successful business owner. The strengths and experience I bring to the board are unmatched by any of the candidates here tonight. The most important strength I bring to the board is that I understand who I serve once elected.
Thank you. And our last board candidate, D.B. Grantham.
Yeah, I'm glad I got this question. First of all, I'm not a politician. The last thing I am. I'm here for one thing, and that's to serve, not to self-serve. That's what it's all about. I love this island like Wayne does. I like Tom. I honestly, and my wife will tell you, and Russell and Donald will tell you, I think I have integrity. Honesty, virtue are all part of what I bring to it. But the main thing I bring to it, to each of you, is I bring experience. I bring 3 terms of experience as an Ocean Isle Beach Commissioner from 2005 to 2016. It is something that can't be replaced. I worked very closely with Debbie, with Daisy, with Dean Walters, with Betty Williamson, with Wayne, okay? And I think very, very effective we'll continue. Oh, man, I'm about third done. I'm just starting.
Okay, many would say the strengths to be mayor are slightly different, so I'd like to begin. What are your strengths to be mayor, our current mayor, Debbie Smith?
Well, I've served you for 17 years as your mayor and for over 30 on council and mayor together. Certainly my heart is in this island. This is where I've grown up. This is where I've lived. This is where I've grown my business. I am second generation in an established business here on Ocean Isle that's grown tremendously under mine and my brother's leadership. With those businesses of real estate and property management, that carries a lot of fiduciary responsibility for money management between different parties, buyers, sellers, owners, renters. So I obviously have been able to do that successfully over the years. My experience in serving you on this council and as mayor has certainly paid off, I believe, for Brunswick County. I have made it my life study to understand coastal processes, to request laws to be changed when it was to the benefit of us.
And the challenger for mayor, Lee Simmons.
Being a business owner on the island for the past 24 years has more than prepared me to listen well, formulate a plan, and lead its implementation. We've weathered storms, faced recessions, and a global pandemic requiring business to be done differently. I will bring fresh insight, new recommendations, and a desire to serve to the mayor's office. I've met with Alan Hancock, NCDOT, Leslie Vegas, North Carolina Coastal Federation, Dudley Brownlow, District Manager for CAMA, David Rouser, North Carolina Congress, and have assurances from each of them that I will have their full support and my transition into office will be seamless. I've met with Daisy Ivey, I've met with Justin Whiteside and assured them of that same seamless transition.
Thank you. Our next question, and this will begin with Wendy Hughes. This is to everyone. Can you identify your top 2 issues that you would like to address if you're elected? Please identify them, why you believe they are a priority, and how you plan to address them.
Thanks. We must address needs versus wants. We are a growing community with an average age of 65 and the medical issues need to be met. We need to expand our Ocean Isle Beach's emergency service levels by adding a paramedic to each shift and a quick response vehicle equipped for these paramedics. Ocean Isle Beach firefighters, EMTs, and police are on the scene within 3 to 5 minutes. The time to meet the standard by the county EMS with their paramedics is a possible 15 minutes from the 911 call until the time EMS paramedics arrive. Many medical issues, especially heart attacks, need to be addressed immediately. By adding paramedics to our emergency services, our community's medical needs would be attended to quicker. Pedestrian safety is imperative. I will propose installing a pedestrian crossing signal on our bridge and a beach warning flag system.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell?
Yes, the 2 top priorities that I have, if I get reelected, is, of course, directed towards the fire department. We are presently looking at expanding that facility that we now have there. We've made an offer on some land. We're waiting to hear back on that so we can expand the fire department. It is of utmost importance that we do that, especially with all the growth that we're having here. The other issues, I think, would be parking, addressing the parking issues that we have as people are coming over, daytimers especially, coming over on Saturdays and Sundays to park, try to find places to park. So that would be one of my issues to address again. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate for mayor, Lee Simmons.
Beyond a doubt, the biggest concerns of our residents are traffic and parking woes. These items neatly roll into my campaign agenda of safety and will be a focal point of my tenure in office. I feel like I will present tonight my extensive plans for each of those. Recently, we've been presented with a hot button topic of a new community center on the old town hall property. From as early as 2018, our homeowners expressed a lack of desire for this, and I want all homeowners to know I will champion their efforts towards bringing police and fire presence back on the island, utilizing our existing building. I will work diligently to have small group meeting space as well as indoor-outdoor meeting space in our existing Old Town Hall, and will spend their money both wisely and on projects they desire.
Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Well, I think probably the biggest issue that we're facing here in the near future is the growth on the island, but as well as the growth that's happening in this county. That certainly impacts us. These people that are moving here and retiring here are here to enjoy the beaches as well as the golf courses and our way of life. So that's we're going to have to be prepared for that. And with that comes public services, police, fire, and all of that. Traffic, we have one bridge, one way on, one way off, and we're not going to get a new bridge anytime in the near future with 850 residents on here. I've already had that discussion. Parking is a big issue. We have already been talking about adding some additional public parking with our side streets, our connector streets. I have already met with the county to talk about, I think the county has a responsibility to help us with parking for their residents that are in the county. So I've already had discussion about off-island parking, county funded with a shuttle. And I'm trying to get all the mayors of the beach communities to help me champion that through the county commissioners.
Thank you. Suzanne Adams.
Helping to manage change, I think, is the top issue. And of course, rapid growth on and off island is part of that change. But also all these new projects that we are tackling, they're going to trigger a lot of change too. As far as rapid growth, how do we adapt to the increased traffic, parking, infrastructure, and safety concerns? I mean, that's what Debbie was talking about. But also, what signs and restrictions are we going to need for our bike lanes? Will the addition of the terminal groin invite more visitors to the east end of the island? How are we going to accommodate them? I also, secondly, want to engage residents more effectively in what is going on at OIB. I hear residents evaluating the past. I hope to engage them in the future. I'll communicate and collaborate with citizens and leaders to form a strategic plan to manage growth. I will request OIB's most current CAMA land use plan and annual town strategic goals to reevaluate growth and new projects and their effect on wildlife, infrastructure, and emergency. Also evaluate and communicate residents. Do we talk through the website, Facebook calls, water bills, or what?
Thank you. Tom Athey.
I have a number of issues that I would like to address if elected, but my number one issue has always been, like a lot of us, public safety, the police department, fire department, making sure those entities have the support, the equipment, the manpower needed to face the challenges with the growth that we have here. Traffic, infrastructure, we're getting ready to do, hopefully close on about 241 acres on Old Georgetown Road. That most likely will turn into more residential homes there, put a stress on our infrastructure, put a stress on our planning and inspections department. I think we just have to be able to look towards the future and make sure that we're doing the right thing to be prepared for it.
Thank you. D.B. Grantham.
I certainly agree with everything that my esteemed colleagues have said. They're all issues, they're all major issues, but to me, if I had to list them, number one is public safety, number two is public safety, number three is public safety, followed by a host of other things. And that's what's so important. To me, it starts with, I just think we absolutely have to have on-island EMT and fire presence. Absolutely. Wendy mentioned the fact that the median age here is probably around 65. It's absolutely imperative that we have quick response to stroke victims, to heart attack victims, and so forth. The issues are different for people our age than the younger ones. So I'm gonna leave it at that right now. We need obviously a new fire department. We need rip current education and make sure that we don't have people, our tourists, have to feel safe during that and be educated with it.
Thank you. And finally, Susan Harrison.
Okay, I think undoubtedly the two biggest issues facing Ocean Isle Beach right now are the expected growth off the island and on the island. And also, I think the parking and traffic control issues. If elected, I promise that I will attend as many of the county meetings as I can and engage the citizens in the issues that the county is bringing up, the plans that they are bringing up. And if the citizens want to have a say in those, that we get together and we go to those council meetings. I think that's a good way to stay on top of what the county's doing and let them know, like Debbie said, any requirements or suggestions we may have. Of course, traffic control adds to public safety. Nobody can argue with public safety. I do think we need to improve parking, and we have the ability to do so.
Thank you. Again, you guys are doing just fantastic. Just thank you so much for staying on time. We have another slightly long question, or I hope there's a question in here. Okay, are you ready, candidates? Pay attention. This has to do with clean or enjoyable beaches. Clean and or enjoyable beaches. How about just clean beaches? What are your views on following the lead of other top beaches in our area, as well as our country, Wrightsville Beach being the closest to home, and putting a ban on cigarettes, cigars, and pipe smoking on the beach? Approximately 1/3 of the trash we pick up on the beach is cigarette butts. These things are said to take up to 10 years to break down, and I think we would all agree that having a neighbor on a crowded beach that's smoking will ruin a beautiful beach experience. And Mr. Ryle, you have the privilege to answer that first.
I agree. No, I think if it were up to me as a commissioner, I would support a ban and have non-smoking on the beach. But my problem with that is the enforcement of it. How are we going to enforce that? Our beach patrols already are overburdened with enforcement of rules on the beach. So I guess that's my biggest issue with it. I definitely would support a ban if we could do that, but I'm not certain we can do it.
Thank you. Mayor candidate Lee Simmons.
I agree with Wayne. If it were up to me, I would ban smoking tomorrow or the day after. Coastal expert Dr. Stephen Leatherman states, there's a national movement to prevent smoking, especially on public lands, and beaches should be a priority. Littered cigarette butts leach toxic chemicals into the environment, and toxic exposure can poison fish. The best beaches in America include many smoke-free spots. Hawaii outlawed smoking at all state beaches in 2015, and we're nearing the end of 2021. So we're not at the forefront of this issue. I believe it's time that Ocean Isle examines a smoking ban from both a litter and a public nuisance perspective. But again, as Wayne said, it's going to take a lot of details to figure out how to manage the control of it.
Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Well, I agree. I would like to see a non-smoking beach as well. But I do think that our police and our beach patrol have much more important things to attend to than being running up and down the Strand all day for complaints about smokers. I would support posting all beach accesses with a please no smoking sign. I would support that. But I think it's going to be an enforcement issue. I know the calls they get today when there's cabanas put up and how they have to run from one end to the other or try to take care of that. So I just think this would add to that burden unnecessarily, and by the time they get there, the cigarette's out anyway. So they can't give a ticket for something they don't see happen. So I worry about the enforcement, but I would support a voluntary posting of requests for no smoking on all of our beach public accesses.
Thank you. Suzanne Adams.
Sure. At BCC, I spent 3 years moving the campus to tobacco-free. In 2016, BCC became no smoking, vaping, or chewing on campus. And as a OIB litter-free volunteer, the cigarette butts are the worst. They are the worst. The ban of tobacco on the beach would need to be strongly supported by residents before an ordinance could be passed. And I do have a couple of cautions that were mentioned here too. Enforcing that ban is going to be really difficult, and we're adding yet another ordinance to be patrolled by our law enforcement. And residents are frustrated enough. I constantly hear they're not enforcing the ordinances. So I think we're going to be experiencing a lot of changes in the near term. So I'd take our time in moving to tobacco-free. And that includes even defining what it means to be tobacco-free, because you need to do that. You know, does it mean just not smoking? I really like Debbie's idea of putting signs on the beach.
Tom Athey.
I'll support any reasonable orders to keep the beach clean and free of any trash or litter. I'm not a smoker, never have been, but as everybody's pointing out, the biggest challenge is how do you enforce such a ban. I think the officers do a good job interacting with the beachgoers on violations that they encounter. I think if a ban's put in place, we can hopefully rely on the rental companies and for them to be proactive in educating the renters that, you know, this is unacceptable on the beach. And I think the best we can do is ask for voluntary compliance. One thought may be to do a temporary ban next year to see how it works, and you know, we could either go make it permanent or not do it at all. But I think the enforcement arm of that is almost impossible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grantham.
As everyone else has stated, I'm totally opposed to smoking on the beach. Simple as that. And I also know from my experience as a commissioner, the toughest thing in the world is to pass an ordinance that cannot be enforced. So that's a very tough issue. I think the thing is that it will never be able to enforce it totally, and I don't think that that's what our beach patrol or our police officers should do. I think education is part of it, posting signs is part of it, and appealing to our guests, our visitors, and all our residents here to please protect the beach is the way we need to start. It's never going to be perfect. We all know that it's not going to be perfect. But I'll tell you what, as one who was in the Army, and Tom will attest to this, on police call a lot. The police call, by the way, is picking up cigarette butts, other people's cigarette butts. There's nothing more insidious.
Thank you. Suzanne Harrison.
That's not a good visual. I'm not a smoker myself either. I don't like to see smoking on the beach, but I do think it's a little bit of overreach. I think it would need to have more research to determine, like Suzanne said, what does that mean? What does it apply to? We have people coming here from out of state. We have people coming from just over the waterway. It's a lot of people, and it's taken away a freedom that many might object to. So I think we need to have citizen input before we do this. I also think the enforceability is just almost impossible. Thank you.
Thank you. And Wendy Hughes to finish this up.
Just like everyone else, I've never been a smoker, and I can empathize with anyone that does have adverse reactions, because I myself get scratchy throat and a headache around smokers. The problem, like everyone else has said, with banning it is how to enforce it. Unlike our town park, which is a small area, which does have a no smoking, I believe, rule in it, the beach is a huge area, and it'd be hard to enforce that. And we only have so many people working beach patrol during the season, and it is not done during the off season. So it would be a matter of who would write a ticket, how would we enforce it, and some rules are just difficult to enforce, unfortunately.
That was a great discussion. I thought we were going to get 100%, but hey. Great question, by the way. And as someone who is on the beach most days of my life for the past 26 years, yeah, it's disgusting. So thank you guys for your answers. Really good answers. All right, we'll now take another question. This is a good one. And this one will start with candidate for mayor, Lee Simmons.
Okay.
With the increase in vacationers using golf carts on Ocean Isle Beach, how do you plan to address the need for parking, especially near beach access? Several public parking areas have been added, but inadequate for the amount of carts, especially on the west end of the beach.
I'm actually unfamiliar with new public parking areas, and in conversation with town administration, there are no definitive plans for additional on-island parking. West End parking is a bit of a sticky wicket, as all of the streets beyond Ocean Isle Villa condos are private streets where the town actually has no jurisdiction. That being said, at the Beaufort Street parking lot, there are currently 31 spaces. We can increase that by extending that lot north and wrap the corner with either car or golf cart parking. 12 spaces would be available for cars or 19 for golf carts. Both Shelby Street and Starboard Street are connector streets, which could be converted to one-way streets, much like our mid-island streets are, and would accommodate 14 or 15 cars each, including 2 handicap spaces.
And Mayor Debbie Smith.
Yes, as I've said before, we have begun discussing converting some of our additional connector streets to allow parking. Most of those are not at public beach accesses. There's no parking presently on Starboard Street on the west end, because that's also our emergency access to get out on the beach on the west end. So we try to keep that clear. There's always need for additional public parking, and that is only going to grow as this area grows. I do have some ideas for parking on the east end once the terminal growing gets constructed. I think there are several opportunities there to add parking. So I plan to work on that if I'm reelected, certainly. So we'll continue to do this. You know, we have to do it in a thoughtful in a thoughtful manner. We have to budget for it, so it's not going to be done overnight. But I think that is the direction, certainly, that the present board that sits here is going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there has been an explosion of golf carts, and I think we need to reevaluate options. I don't know all the options. I bet the staff of the town really knows that. I know that across from our house on the Shelby access, there's probably room for more golf carts. Perhaps with ingenuity, we can do something near the West Water Tower and expand for golf carts if it doesn't compromise the security fence. We could lease parking from the aisles, perhaps on a corner. Designated cart area on the land adjacent to the proposed community center at 5 West 3rd Street. That was bought with accommodation taxes, and we could use that as a parking space. I'd investigate the possibility of leasing parking from the aisles and from the pier. The town, as Debbie mentioned, could purchase land, and that could come from accommodation taxes. I just want to say, I don't want golf carts parking on the bike paths, though. I'm really concerned about not only something like that and the signage that we need for that, but reckless golf carts. Underage driving and children not belted in.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Tom Heaphy.
Golf carts continue to be an issue that I plan to address if elected. I made it clear unlicensed drivers should not be allowed to drive golf carts on the island any more than they should be allowed to drive an SUV on the island. I've raised that issue throughout my campaign. I've learned that the town has ordered signs that will be posted throughout the island prohibiting unlicensed and underage drivers from operating them. I believe that will help with the overwhelming number of golf carts on the island during the season long with reducing the issues caused by them. Any area designated for parking can be used for golf cart parking. Doesn't have to say golf cart parking. They're actually vehicles under North Carolina law. If public access areas on either end of the island have room for golf cart parking, I'll support adding golf cart parking as well. And I agree with the mayor. I looked at possibilities for parking on the east end. Once the growing is complete, it looked like there'd be a lot of area out there that can be used for different purposes. I will have to say I would not be in support.
Thank you. Mr. Grantham.
My perspective on this has changed a lot this year. After 30 years in this area, we lived on the west end for a while, and I got a totally different perspective on things. And the need for parking and access, beach access on the west end is acute. When you look at the density of population with the number of multifamily units there, condos and so forth, the need is definitely acute. I will have to say, though, we lived on Sunset Beach very briefly while we were having our home built, okay? And their parking situation is so different. You have such a huge concentration of parking in the pier area, and then almost no access and parking further down the beach, either east or west. So our situation is totally different. I applaud our town for all the accesses and parking that we do provide. I gotta say this, because I didn't know the question was gonna go there. No more 8-year-old cart drivers, okay? Seriously. We can't, it's just a public safety factor. Okay.
Thank you, Susanna Harrison.
There has been a proliferation of golf carts in recent years, and I actually think it's a good thing. Golf carts don't take as much space as cars. Golf carts can park 5 to 1 as cars. I think it's a good thing. I do think on the West End is the most acute area. You can't expect our age to walk from Via Dolorosa with all your stuff over to the beach. It's just unreasonable. So we do need some golf cart parking in those areas. At the beach accesses currently, there are some areas, I think if you cleaned them up, put in some hard stops for golf carts to park there, that might help. Suzanne's idea of leasing from the aisles is also a good idea. On the East End, we're getting ready to do a huge $11 million project. There's a new development going in down there. There's going to be a lot of construction. Following that, there's going to be remediation and rehabilitation of those areas down there. That is a good opportunity to put in some small parking lots for golf carts and maybe even some for cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Hughes.
Yes, parking issues have increased with new developments within our town. The town needs to investigate forming partnerships with some of the private businesses, such as the aisles and the piers, which I agree with a lot of other people here, especially during the peak summer months. West of the Causeway has fewer parking areas, so we need to research the possibility of buying or leasing available land to create additional parking spaces. Also utilizing parts of the green space located beside the old town hall on West 3rd Street for parking and not allowing the right-of-way parking on West 1st would help improve parking and pedestrian safety issues.
Thank you. And Mr. Rowe.
Yes, I agree. We have become overrun with golf carts, especially this summer. It seemed like they just proliferated like right and left. But we are looking at areas that we could add golf cart parking on the West End. Right now, a lot of the golf cart parking takes place on the town's right-of-way, especially on Driftwood Drive. There's good areas in there where they can park on right-of-ways. And since this has evolved into a let's do away with underage driving, I completely agree with that. But let me just ask that people, if you see someone that's looks like they're underage driving a golf cart, please call the police. They can't be everywhere at the same time. So if they see it, they do stop them, and they do have a conversation with the child that's driving the cart, and they do take them back to their parents and talk to the parents. But if you see somebody doing this, please call them, give them the location that you saw it, the description of the golf cart, and that will help solve some of this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidates, you have completed 1 hour of this forum, which is equal to about 12 years in regular age. So congratulations. I hope your bladders are holding up. I hope you have plenty of hydration there. If you need anything, obviously you just let us know, and we will do our best to accommodate you. Audience, the same. If you need to exit at any time, just quietly make your way to the back. There are facilities just out. So if you're ready, we will continue on. You've been very patient, Mayor Debbie Smith, but finally you're up for the first question. This is to everyone. Okay. Again, these questions were submitted by members of the community. I noticed the town has started its planned paving project very slowly. There's dots, a lot of dots. With just one street paved at the time I submit my questions. 2 dots. In truth, oddly, only half the street. I think anyone who drives this island frequently would agree that Lee Street is in by far the worst shape of any OIB public road. This is due to the hauling of all the spoil material for the canal dredging. The project destroyed the street, leaving lumps and bumps all up and down it where your car shocks really get a good workout. My question is, in your opinion, why did we choose to pave the Mayor's Street first? And let me correct that, the Mayor's end of Duneside Street first, and only that end to this point.
The mayor didn't make that decision, nor did the mayor make the decision on what was going to get paved in this cycle of town paving. The town police and the street department surveyed the island and decided what would get paved. Lee Street is on that schedule. We did not give, the contractor is trying to work in areas where there's the least traffic to get what he can done as quick as he can get done. I've personally inquired to get 3rd and 4th Street resurfaced. There's a section through there that is in real bad shape, and I've asked for that to be done immediately. I am told by the contractor that he'll get to it the first part of November. So he has tried to patch places that were the least traffic, while there were still so many people here. If you'll review our budget workshop, you will see pictures of all the areas that the police and the street department took of where they recommended.
Thank you. Suzanne Adams, same question.
Yeah, I didn't know why. I only know that the town does have a process to identify and address parking projects, and it is jointly by the street department and the police department, and it's scheduled by the convenience of the paver. A budget workshop is held with the Board of Commissioners in April or May, and a list of those paving projects with accompanying evidential photos are presented. The 21-22 budget includes $20,000 in street repairs, $140 in the Powellville street improvement expenditures. Duneside, that half, and Lee Street were included. The paving contractor determines the paving schedule and works where there is the most need and the least traffic. It's expected that the connector streets will be paved this spring after the First Street project, which is the resurfacing of First Street and the bike lanes, is complete. I just find this very unfortunate that it has become a political issue.
Thank you. Tom Athey?
All the information she had, I got from the town. And my question related to the paving was, to the town, there's one half of Troy Street that has never been paved. My only question was, why was that not included on the list of streets to be paved? I was told by one staff person that over 18 years, there's never been a request for that to be paved, which I thought was odd, that the police department and maintenance ride by that same street that I ride by every day and never noticed that it was still dirt. That was my only question. I had all the numbers and the calls for the paving. My other comment about that was that my business, I did paving there for my business. The cost for that paving seems to be a little better price than that, and I would just suggest that we may look at maybe different contractors do the paving.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Grantham?
First of all, I'd like to say I have ridden down Lee Street just to see what the situation is. It's bad. It needs paved. Others do too. I'm going to relate this back to my experience for 13 years as a commissioner. And I found total fairness with the street and police department in terms of prioritization. It's always been based on a need, and that's whether it was paving or whether it was flooding of given areas. They've always been very, very attuned to that and taking care of those needs as they develop. Regarding the other issue which is brought up, and that's regarding Debbie and her new house and her paving, that just doesn't sound right to me at all. It's just, I personally don't agree that there was any prioritization given there. I don't think that was the case. That's a personal opinion.
Thank you. Susan Harrison?
I hardly know what to say here. I do see we have $160,000 in the budget this year for paving. And one issue that I've brought up before to the council and want to bring up publicly tonight, two things. The East End is going to have a lot of construction, currently has a lot of traffic and construction. It's going to need some cleanup and dress up when that's finished. In that regard, also, I notice that almost every street we have has a pothole around the corner of the street. If you're going to make a right, your rear tire ends up in the hole. People don't know these streets. Can we just get a little paving and get those potholes filled? I don't think that would be that expensive, and maybe we could get it in this year. That's one thing I've noticed.
Thank you. Wendy Hughes.
Yeah, I also pondered this same question because as I was taking a walk, several people around there was asking, "Do you know why Doonside was paved before any others?" And then I do realize that Lee Street does need a lot of repair on it. So I did put in a request to the town with a list of about 12 questions, which was also asking that same one, where I requested for information showing the paving schedule for the roads of that the town maintains, the criteria of determining when they need to be paved, and how roads are prioritized on any list or schedule. I've learned tonight that, and through the email that I received from the town, that there's not really a comprehensive long-term plan, but they do, like you said, go around and check. But to me, it still seems, even in this, that the Lee Street was last on the list of 9 roads that I received an email from.
Thank you. Wayne Rao.
Yes. Regarding the Doonside paving, we do have a schedule of paving that is left up to the paver to do when he can get to it. Doonside, the reason it was paved again was because it was a short street. He could get to it quickly and get it done and get out. They were also that area of Doonside had many utility cuts in it. It's like riding on a washboard down through there. So and again, there was no preference given because it's the mayor's street. Troy Street that Tom mentioned earlier, it's never been a request to pave it. There's no houses on that street, or there have not been any houses on that street, so that's another reason it has not been paved. We do get bids on paving. By state law, we have to get 3 bids on any project, so that we do get bids on paving, take the low bid. So that's what I have to say about paving.
Good, thank you. And finally, our challenger for mayor, Lee Simmons.
I agree that Lee Street is in need of paving and that the damage to Lee Street was a direct result of the trucks hauling spoil material. I do believe that Lee Street is on the list the town has for future paving projects. It seems like to me perhaps that should have been moved up to the top of the list. I think the fact that Doonside was paved could appear as favoritism shown to the mayor. I would like to believe that that's not the case. But in any event, I've assured my neighbors on Wilmington Street, should I be elected mayor, any paving projects on Wilmington Street will be moved to the back of the list, because I don't want to come under this kind of scrutiny.
I think you're real unpopular.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, we're back to you, Suzanne Adams. You'll be kicking this off. Okay, research conducted by the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, also known as the CSIRO, and the University of the Sunshine Coast, also known as USC, but that's not the USC I know, found that a turtle had a 22% chance of dying if it ate just one piece of plastic. Once a turtle had 14 plastic items in its gut, there was a 50% likelihood that it would die. This is all true. As a veterinarian, I can tell you. What is your opinion or position on following Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach in their recent banning of plastic bags? Would you be opposed or for it? Can we also ban plastic straws and those plastic sporks that you often find on the beach? It would be an easy, cheap way to save the lives of turtle. We'll start with you, Suzanne.
Well, if we can save turtles or any of our sea life, I think we need to try to do that. I'm not opposed to moving to single-use, away from single-use bags to eco-friendly, and getting rid of those sporks on the beach is also true. But I have read that Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach have had to wait to actually implement that ban because it really is detrimental to the businesses in Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach. So we would not want to hurt our businesses. So to place such a ban at OIB would need to be carefully scheduled to work with businesses. OIB would need to focus on educating residents and visitors about the ban. I think we need to put information on the website, maybe the beach access signs where it has the turtle nesting and say, no plastic. Put information and rentals, monitor with warnings on the beach. But with all the other changes we have on the island, again, we need to be patient and we need to take time. It'll be a difficult ordinance to enforce and yet one more to enforce. We don't want to be a no beach.
Thank you. Tom, Athey?
Yeah, just like the other orders, I'm in favor with it if it's going to keep our beach clean and free of trash and litter. I said, if we do that, town's going to have to educate everyone, including the rental companies, so they understand what the ban is for and the reason for it. I think the expectation will be for every rental company make clear to the renters that the ban is in effect. Just like Susan said, additional sign is going to have to be put up so everybody understand what the rules are on the beach. And I would enlist the help of the OIB Sea Turtle Protection volunteers to monitor and have conversation with folks on the beach about the ban.
Thank you. Mr. Grantham?
This is an interesting question. I've been in the packaging business for 50 years and obviously deal a lot with plastics, so it's a sensitive issue for me. I hate to have an ordinance to ban everything. It's almost like saying, no, 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 you can't, you can't, you can't. How long can that list of items on a sign be, okay? On the other hand, I'm also a biology major and a chemist and an environmentalist. And not only sea turtles, but also seabirds, whales, dolphin, all marine life, plankton, photoplankton, all the way down because plastics do not totally degrade, okay? I know that the industry is working very, very hard to develop biodegradable plastics. So I'm hoping that not too far down the road, we have an alternative to it. So let me just say at this point in time, that if we could do it effectively without sounding like we're banning everything, do anything possible to protect our wildlife and our sea turtles. So I would be in favor of it.
Good. Thank you. Susan Harrison?
I was a little bit confused by this question. First of all, the two organizations that they quoted, I did look those up. Those were both in Australia, and I'm sure one was a university quoting research from the other. I would need to do a little more research myself to see if this is really the issue to focus on. The loggerhead turtle is native to North Carolina down to Florida. I don't understand also the plastic bag issue. Are they talking about Ziploc bags? Are they talking about, I think they're talking about grocery bags. Those were banned in large cities for environmental purposes of production, not for pollution. I really think the biggest contributor to pollution in our oceans is dumping in the ocean. And I don't know that we don't get more plastic coming out of the ocean than we do going in the ocean. And so I would like to see, and I think the Sea Turtle Group has worked with those groups to work on banning dumping in the ocean.
Thank you. Wendy Hughes?
Well, Ocean Isle Beach was designated a sea turtle sanctuary in 2013. So we should always look at improving codes, ordinances, and guidelines to be at the highest possible standard we can. I agree that plastic is a fatal issue for all of wildlife. I also believe it would be extremely difficult to enforce a ban on all plastic, especially the sporks and straws that are brought in from various areas and businesses outside our town's jurisdiction. We could research the possibility of creating a town ordinance to require local companies that do business on the Strand to begin using biodegradable straws as well as the straw-spoon combinations. In order to make more stringent regulation, we would have to work with the county to pass a county-wide ordinance in order to ban all plastic.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell?
Yes, I am a big supporter of the Sea Turtle Protection Organization. My wife and I sponsor a nest every year. They do a great job on this island, and I think probably some of this may have come from maybe some members of that organization. But again, to me, this comes down to the enforcement thing and banning everything in the world. You can't do it. I do hate to see plastic bags lying on the beach, or the sporks, or the forks, or whatever they might be, or the plastic straws. I think, again, maybe it's an education problem that we have. Maybe we should try more to educate beachgoers with additional signs. And I know it's tough to get people to read these signs and all the rules that are posted on these signs. But maybe that's one area that we ought to look at, is additional educational information. Please don't litter our beaches. Keep them clean.
Thank you. Candidate for Mayor, Lee Simmons.
Stewardship of our island is imperative for its sustainability for both current and future generations. This is a campaign platform and is found in great detail on my website. In spring of 22, next spring, I would like to require all of our beach strand vendors to use biodegradable products exclusively. This would be a clause in their annual contract, and failure to adhere would mean an immediate cancellation of that contract and forfeiture of any fee paid. Also, beginning in January of 2022, Ocean Isle Beach would establish guidelines for complete elimination of single-use plastics by the beginning of our 2023 tourist season around March 1st of 23. These measures will ensure cleaner streets, less debris at public accesses, cleaner ocean water for the protection of turtles, which will help preserve.
Thank you. And Mayor Smith.
I think a ban on plastics would be difficult for us to enforce. Most of the businesses that are using plastic are not within our city limits. Only one grocery store is within our city limits. The other one is not. You know, what it boils down to is litter. And that's what we need to try to work on to make our beaches as clean as possible. But with the amount of people out there, there's going to be something. And I think Susan mentioned it. Some of this stuff is washed up to our shore, not left on our shore. I do know that there's one of our mobile vendors on the beach now that does use biodegradable straw spoon type combination. So that's certainly a positive step, and we can certainly ask the rest of them to do that. But these runners are on vacation. I'm telling you, they are using plastic spoons and plastic forks, and they don't want to wash dishes. So I think that's almost an unenforceable ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I know, like many of you, each time I come back from the beach, I try to pick up some trash. So we do the best we can, but it's an important topic. Thank you guys for addressing that. We have 3 more general questions, then we have some directed questions. So you guys are at mile 20 of the marathon. We will begin with Tom Athey. Interestingly, a review of the minutes of past Board of Commissioners meetings for the past several years have noted that every vote on an issue was unanimous. Admittedly, that is a highly improbable that no dissenting votes were cast on any issue. Do you find that unusual? And if so, are you able to vote independent of any influence or expectation by any other board members or elected officials?
I have observed a number of board meetings and have read a significant amount of the minutes for each one. And it does appear that more often than not that the votes are unanimous and very little open debate in front of the town as to how they arrived at that vote. I'll not be influenced by anyone on the board. There's should be no expectation by anyone that I vote a certain way. I fully intend to review any and all the information provided to the board by town staff with respect to any project being considered by the board, and I require town staff to provide me supporting documentation for any reports we're provided. I'll make myself available to any resident homeowner or business owner to understand any concerns they may have before I make a decision on how to vote. I'll cast my vote in support of the majority of the residents, and will do so during a regularly scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting. I'm not asking any candidate for commissioner or mayor for their vote, and I'll not be indebted to anyone if I'm elected.
Thank you. Mr. Grantham?
I'm going to be very objective in this answer. I'd ask you to go back to the minutes for the meeting prior, 2016 and prior, back to 2005, and that just wasn't the case. And as often as not, I was probably the dissenting vote. But what I would tell everybody here is that the great thing about Ocean Isle Beach and its governing body is our ability to work together because we had the same end goal, and that was the love of the island, the betterment of it, and serving you and taking care of our constituents and always listening to them. That's what I always tried to do. But we always worked together and reasoned together, and because we were friends also, enjoying this island so much, we were able to do things in harmony. And that's been one of the beautiful things about Ocean Isle Beach all these years. We are so different than most of the other Brunswick Island beaches, and that's one of the sincere reasons for it. Thank you.
Susan Harrison?
I do think it is Thanks. I do think it's unusual that all the votes were unanimous, but I have listened to the board meetings. I've been here and listening for about 2 years, and they do discuss different aspects of the votes, and then they come to a consensus. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I do think that the town could be more transparent and get more citizen feedback before they're making the final vote. And if elected, I would do that. I want to represent you all. And to do that, I need your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Hughes?
I believe it is very highly unusual for any board, whether elected or volunteer, to always have a unanimous vote on topics. As the saying goes, we should be able to agree to disagree. Ideas and suggestions need to be discussed during public meetings to make informed, educated decisions that affect our town. I have witnessed many citizens express concerns and suggestions to the current board, and they have felt they've been easily dismissed. In the past, even myself, I have made suggestions to certain commissioners, and they agreed to present it to the board. But when discussion occurred in the agenda, they were not even presented. I have witnessed some of our current commissioners express opposing viewpoints on an issue, but then acquiesced to the rest of the board and passed a unanimous vote. I agree if you have reservations and believe something different, then you need to show the fortitude to vote your conscience. And if that is in opposition, then that's just the way it is.
Mr. Rowell?
Yes, thank you, Ernie. Just let me say, I always vote my conscience and what is best for this town and for you residents and all citizens that own property here. I do my research on each topic that's presented on the agendas. We do get the agendas the week before the meeting, so we do have ample time to go and research each and every item that's on there, whether it be through looking it up through Google or through discussions with our town staff as to why this was being brought to the council. So, you know, I really almost take offense that we vote unanimously on every item. It's probably true in the last couple of years we have, but we've had some dissenting votes before. I've sat on this board now for 8 years, and we have had some dissenting votes. Again, the time that we're allotted to do our research on these things is significant, and that's why we do it, so we make the correct decision for the town and for the persons here on this island. Thank you.
Challenger for Mayor, Lee Simmons.
I've always been bothered that each of our commissioners' meetings has an executive session. Transparency and accountability are the bedrock of our democratic system. They are these essential guardrails that protect against unchecked power. The only items to be discussed in executive session are legal matters, formation of contracts, member discipline, personnel matters, and payment plans. With our Board of Commissioners, many votes are taken in unanimous agreement with no public discussion. Meeting minutes are approved in executive session. Simply put, board members may not engage in related discussion or decision-making outside of board meetings. My question is our board upholding their responsibilities to its citizens?
Mayor Smith?
I'll answer Lee's question first, and the answer to that is yes, Lee, they are. And executive sessions are stated for what is going to be discussed in that executive session. And what is discussed in executive is allowed by law. As Wayne said, we do get our agenda packets a week in advance. It is published prior to the meeting. The agenda is published prior to the meeting. So you, as the public, have advance notice of what's coming up on that agenda as well. If you're not on that sunshine list that gets those minutes, put your name on it so you know what's happening in advance of the meeting. The mayor doesn't get a vote. In this board, the mayor does not get a vote. The only time a mayor votes is in the case of a tie. That doesn't happen with 5 seated board members. So I don't think I've ever voted, but maybe once in the 17 years that I've served you.
And finally, Suzanne Adams?
I can vote independent of any influence or expectation by other board members. I attended board meetings in which commissioners deferred to subsequent meetings or review by the planning board, and I've seen dissension and open discussion in this boardroom for sure. For instance, there was a recent discussion regarding the ordinance limiting times for food trucks on the island. Only following 2 board meetings with public comments, many, rich discussion by the commissioners, open, and a business survey did the board take a vote on whether to change the ordinance. The unanimous vote showed due diligence by the board to make decisions relative to what is best for the island, not to string out dissent. Also, many of the unanimous votes would clearly be unanimous. The Oyster Festival of the Park, joint litter-free OIB. Agendas are open to the public and to commissioners so they can do their homework before a meeting, not wait to debate in the boardroom. As an aside, please review the progress of our sister municipalities and view how public argument can halt progress.
Thank you. And I don't know about many of you, but a highlight of my week is to read the minutes of the Sunset Beach Town Council.
Bingo.
Throw it out there. I love Sunset Beach. All right, this next one will begin with Mr. Grantham. Parking. It's a long one. I feel, as do many others I've spoken with, that the parallel parking on 2nd Street between the natural canals, as well as areas of 1st Street, particularly adjacent to the pier, is dangerous. If you are going anywhere near the stated speed limit of 35 miles per hour, and a child steps out from between 2 cars parked within a foot or 2 of the road, you don't have a chance to stop and will either hit the child or be forced into oncoming traffic in the other lane. What are your views on no longer allowing parking on these roads where it is dangerous and opening up parking on all of the connector streets, not just the connectors where public accesses occur? This would mean all the connectors being one-way streets, but that inconvenience is a small price to pay if it saves a child's life. What is your opinion?
Thank you. I wanted that question. Honestly. I don't think that the parallel parking on 2nd Street should be the issue. I think the issue and the resolution to the issue should be a simple one. I think the speed limit should be reduced to 25 miles an hour in those most congested areas during the summer season only, just during that time. I think that would alleviate it. That would take away or reduce certainly the chances, opportunities for those accidents to take place, for someone to be hit. Now, we have been there when that occurred and saw a young child almost killed in the same area that you're talking about. Carol, I know you'll remember, it was a young man from Kentucky, and he was literally brain damaged for life after that. I know a lot of people remember that. So I'm very, very sensitive to that. I think that's the best solution we have right now. We need the parking desperately.
Thank you. Susan Harrison.
I would be against a reduction in the speed limit. maybe for that 1 or 2 blocks where we currently have the bad parking issue. My dad was a highway engineer, and he always said roads were built to be driven on. And it's not going to matter what speed limit you're going. If a child darts out on that street, it's going to be a tragedy. Okay? I do think it's also a Department of Transportation issue on whether that section of that street is declared a no parking zone. I would behoove the town to check with the DOT, see if we can't get that approved for those few blocks, especially on 2nd Street and maybe on 1st Street across from the pier. And then increase the parking, as everybody else has said, so people can get to the beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Hughes.
The 2017 CAMA Land Use Plan's recommendation to question 6 proposed identifying locations where a change in the traffic flow from two-way to one-way traffic can be used to increase parking for beach access. This is but a start to an overall plan where we should request a comprehensive traffic study done by the NCDOT that places an equal emphasis on safety along with traffic and parking. Speeding on our streets is a major problem, which was brought to the attention of our current council most recently. First, we need to better enforce our speeding while working on the parking issues, and I know that Ken is trying to do that and trying to enforce it as best he can. We've put up, I believe, several cameras as well to try to do that, so that is a good thing. But I do feel it is imperative to research ways to eliminate parking on the right-of-way areas of 1st and 2nd Street due to the danger for pedestrians.
Thank you. Wayne Rowell?
Yes. Regarding the parking on 1st and 2nd Streets, any change in that would require North Carolina Department of Transportation approval to do that, as Susan had mentioned. That would have to come from them. We can request it, obviously, but it's up to them to decide whether or not we could do that. We have had traffic studies done, especially within the last year, especially on East 2nd Street. DOT did come back after that traffic study and say, we think the speed limit should be left at 35 miles per hour. We should not lower it. So that's, again, that's an issue that they have addressed with us and gave us an answer for us. And that said, no, don't lower the speed limit. So I think on 1st Street, with the upcoming paving of 1st Street East and West and the addition of the bike lanes, that may alleviate some of this problem on 1st Street across from the pier, because the streets will be widened 5 feet on each side to accommodate those bike lanes. So,
Thank you. Candidate for Mayor, Lee Simmons.
My suggested parking plan is to add parking on all connector streets, east from Tarboro Street to Southport Street, converting each to one-way streets in alternating directions, which will add 90 new parking spots. We would eliminate all public parking on both 1st and 2nd Street with no parking signs. This would eliminate 27 spaces on 2nd Street, so our net gain is 67. By far the largest part of my plan would be a public-private venture with the Williamson family and the pier parking lot and our adjacent town-owned parking lot. This would be paid parking on private land, administered in conjunction with the town, with parking profits being shared between landowners and the town of Ocean Isle Beach.
Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Well, I think it's already been said, a child that darts out in front of a car, whether it's on the side of the road or in a parking lot, will likely result in a tragedy. So there's not been a large number of incidences of street side parking causing those kind of problems. This public-private partnership with the pier, I've already spoken with the Williamsons, that is not going to happen. They presently have paid parking there that they collect on. So, and if you watch the traffic and where parking is as much as I do, you'll see that those people don't want to go in those paid parking areas. He will not have many paid parkers there when all the other public accesses are full. So, But he's not interested in going in business with the town. If he's going to do paid parking, he's going to do it on his own.
Thank you. Suzanne Adams?
Well, obviously, I support any measures that could save a life. Some solutions will need engineering or traffic studies before implementing, and I know many of those have been done in the past. First Street's a state road. We need to go to DOT to seek permission to place no parking signs there. We could ask NCDOT to reevaluate the 35-mile-an-hour parking, or I should say speed limit. We could ask DOT to erect signs, quote, reduce speed limit, slow pedestrian traffic, since this is a major threat area. We could add yield to pedestrian signs at intersections, which is the Pedestrians' Rights Policy 2173 and 2-155C. We could ask DOT to add a designated pedestrian crosswalk at the end of the pier parking close to the Ocean Isle Inn, if it's within a certain 300 feet. I like the idea of reviewing the possibility of opening up more connector roads on the east end with alternative one-ways. I think that's a good idea. Research, need engineering and traffic studies.
Thank you. And Tom Athey.
Hey, I agree, parking on the right-of-way is dangerous, and I don't know that you have to go through too many bureaucratic methods to stop the parking. We've got a highway patrolman here. I suspect he'll tell you that it's illegal to park on the state maintained right-of-way. So I think that, and like Wayne said, I think the parking on First Street may take care of itself once the bike lanes are in place. They take away that extra 7 foot or 5 foot of right-of-way. I'm of the opinion that the taxpayers of Ocean Isle Beach are not required to provide free parking to visitors with taxpayers' money. If there's a private public partnership that can be forged, I think that's the way to go. And I think we should look at other vacant land on the island for parking. I'm not in favor of changing connector streets to one-way streets and put additional parking there. People who own houses on those streets, I think will be opposed to having 15 or 20 golf carts parked in front of their house.
Thank you. And as someone who's paid a couple of parking tickets on Sunset Beach, I can tell you if you're about that far over. True story. Okay. We'll begin with Susan Harrison. With the failure of Brunswick County to manage off-island growth and the ensuing attack on Ocean Isle Beach by off-island owners, what strategies will you employ to protect Ocean Isle Beach and its residents from this onslaught? There's quite an image there.
Okay, I'm borrowing this. This is not original. We are not under attack. We are in a growth mode. So let's just all relax, have a strategy, have a seat at the county, meaning we attend the county meetings, we know the county officials, we get the vibe on what the county wants to do. If we object or have suggestions or concerns, we as a group can take them to the county. I just want to say one thing on the parking. Everybody's got different ideas on parking, and this goes along with growth mode too. Whatever we do, we must be fiscally responsible. This town is in wonderful financial shape, and we are blessed to be there. We can do the projects that we need: erosion control, traffic control, parking control. So above everything that we've talked about today, fiscal responsibility is key.
Wendy Hughes, what will you do to protect us?
Lock the gates.
Be Wonder Woman? I don't know. First of all, I felt that this question is kind of offensive and seems to portray us in an unwelcoming, unfriendly way. Ocean Isle has always been known as a friendly, welcoming beach community, and I intend to keep it that way, and I think most of you in here feel the same way. Most everyone here are transplants from other areas. Secondly, we need to realize that our town's limits consisted of only the island when it was first established, and it has now grown to encompass off-island areas of Causeway Drive, the subdivision of Saltwater Palms, as well as the areas of Old Georgetown Road, 4 Mile Road, which was recently sold to a developer. So it's imperative that we provide the proper infrastructure to meet the growth. Government's main function is the safety of its community and to provide infrastructure, water, sewer, and roads. I believe if we make informed, educated decisions, we will provide all the needs that we need.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell.
Yes, again, this question is quite interesting. I didn't know we were under attack. And Brunswick County's failure to address the growth issues. I have spoken with Randy Thompson, who is the chairman of the board of the Board of Commissioners for Brunswick County, and also with Kirsty Dixon, who's their planning director. They have just innumerable things in the works right now. One of their plans is the Blueprint 2040, which is a combination of the planning boards, or the planning department, and the recreation department going forward on planning developments. They've also formed a TRC, a technical review committee, which again is composed of 30 members of the planning board members, members of the community. So they are doing an awful lot to accommodate this growth, and they are looking forward and down the road as to what's going to be happening, how to plan for it, what kind of projects they have underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate for Mayor, Lee Simmons.
I have to say, the wording of this question has taken me aback. Without exception, even Debbie, everyone in this room and in this community has moved here from someplace else. She got here a little bit before the rest of us. But we are that desirable. Now, that being said, as one of the fastest growing counties in the country, we must manage our traffic flow, ease congestion, address our parking woes, and as a governing body, represent our homeowners. I've worked diligently with Alan Hancock, Assistant Division Traffic Engineer with NCDOT since August to address our traffic. As soon as I'm elected, Alan has set for traffic studies to begin on Causeway Drive, on 1st Street, and on 2nd Street. Currently, we're focused on treating Ocean Isle Beach, quote, as an event on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during the 100 days of summer.
Mayor Smith.
Well, I'm like everybody else. This was some strong words in this. I'm not sure it was a question as much as it was a statement. But anyway, our challenge is to continue to manage this growth. I will share with you that some of these off-island developers that have looked at the property on Georgetown Road have even discussed this and discussed the if the town would be willing to furnish a bus stop somewhere if they ran shuttles over. So these are things everybody's thinking about. This isn't new. This didn't start this year. It's something that's been coming, but this growth has certainly become more evident to everybody. And I can tell you, what you see today, you're not going to believe what you see in 3 to 5 years from now. Brunswick County will not be the same county it is today in the next 10 years. What you've seen happen in the northern end of the county around the Leland area is going to happen down in this section.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Suzanne Adams.
Brunswick County's strategic vision has always been to grow. First in the north with industry and building coming out of Wilmington, and then it sort of has migrated this way and it exploded because of COVID and retirements. I'm glad to hear, Wayne, that they have something called the Blueprint 2040. I want to take a look at that. That word attack was offensive. Not so much an attack. Growth is inevitable. Everyone has the right to enjoy the beach at OIB, whether they come from Whiteville or directly off the island. Individuals who own land have the right to sell it. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to employ strategies, and this is a broad brush. Engage the county leaders to help manage the growth, ask them to 2040. Ask the county to aid with parking on or transportation onto the island from off-island communities. Engage the DOT in the traffic study, especially during the summer months, to determine the best ways and means to control traffic and make way for emergency vehicles, which really worries me.
Thank you. Tom Mathy.
clearly Brunswick County is the fastest, one of the fastest growing counties, obviously the fastest in the state and one of the fastest in the country. So how we manage that growth, if you own a lot on the island and you fit the zoning requirements and have a building that's meets all the codes, I don't know that we can tell them they can't build a house here. So, I mean, those are just some of the issues. What we can do at this point is keep up with the growth, particularly with the infrastructure. I spoke with a paramedic recently with Brunswick EMS, and he's concerned about the number of medic trucks that are available throughout the night. And he doesn't see any relief in sight at this point. That's a big concern. As far as people coming on the island, we got folks at Saltwater Ponds. I mean, they belong to the town, so they have every right, just like everybody else, coming to the island. I'm not in favor of bus service to the island. I'm not sure how many people are going to ride a bus with beach chairs and all that to the island, and I just think that may not be the best idea.
Thank you. And Mr. Grantham.
I'm really not quite sure what to do with this most interestingly posed question. We all know that we're just in a very desirable place. That's why we're all here. It's a wonderful place to live and for me work and others work and to visit. And I know how much people look forward to coming here for their vacations and for their family time and how desirable that is too. And that's true of all of Brunswick County, which obviously is growing so rapidly, and as Tom said, one of the fastest growing counties in the country right now. The whole thing is about awareness. It's about cooperation with the county, with all the county, with Randy Thompson, for instance, who's a wonderful guy. I guarantee they're feeling exactly the same things we are right now. We have to plan, we have to be on top of it to provide the services and the infrastructure that's necessary for that growth. We can't tell people not to come here. It's just a wonderful place.
And listen, I think I owe you an apology. I may be partly responsible for this question since I moved here in 1993. I have described the period from Memorial Day till Labor Day as the 100-Day War. So maybe somebody took it a little too far. So I apologize.
Are we under attack then, Ernie?
And we know who started it. It's our
That concludes the section for all candidates. I've been handed a bucket of questions now that are to be directed at a specific question, at a person, and there's no response from anybody else, correct? That's correct. Okay, so if your name is called, this question is for you and you alone. Here we go. The first directed question is for candidate for mayor, the challenger, Lee Simmons. It begins with a quote. "It will require strong leadership to ensure we improve our town infrastructure, increase beach safety, enhance our emergency services, protect our coast, make smart operating decisions, and spend taxpayer money responsibly." End quote. As a longtime visitor and 5-year full-time resident, I've seen many positive changes related to the items that you refer to in recent years. These include the traffic circles, the town park, the new town hall, and the Terminal Groin project. These projects obviously took time to develop and likely required significant interaction with local, state, and federal officials. How are you positioned for handling these larger types of projects that may take years to develop? Lee Simmons.
The town of Ocean Isle is indeed growing and changing. The expansion plans for Phase 2 of the town park are slated to begin soon, and I'm excited to work on that project. Our new 27,000 square foot town hall is a beautiful, albeit seemingly oversized for a town of our size, so we certainly will not need to add to or change that. The Terminal Groin project, slated to begin in November, is something I'm very much in favor of. But as I stated in my meeting with Daisy and Justin yesterday, I'm quite dismayed at the lack of transparency of this project's scope. The project cost most often discussed is $11.4 million. In actuality, the 30-year projected cost of the terminal Groin and its maintenance is projected to be $45 million.
That's not true.
We have another directed question. This question is for both Wayne Rowell and Debbie Smith. You will each have 60 seconds to answer. At 1:30 on September 10th, 2018, a state of emergency for Hurricane Florence was declared. At 9:30 on September 11th, that's one day later, at the Board of Commissioners meeting during a state of emergency, Debbie Sloan and Sloan Realty made an offer to purchase 2 West 3rd Street, the Ocean Isle Police Department, for the sum of $460,670. Betty Williamson made the motion and Wayne Rowell seconded. At noon on September 12th, 2018, the following day, Town Hall closed down for Hurricane Florence, slated to be a devastating Cat 4 storm. Do you believe you are acting in the best interest of the town of Ocean Isle Beach and its tax-paying citizens for making this motion and accepting this offer at this time? Would you make the same decision again? And we'll begin with you, Wayne Rowell.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. Yeah, I'll address this. I'm sorry this has become a political issue apparently, but the sale of this building originated back in February, really. We had a contractor came forward and asked, would we be willing to sell it? We said, well, we'll discuss that. So we went ahead and had an appraisal made, which was for $460,000. He never came back to us after this appraisal. Once we told him what the appraisal was, so he never came back with any interest. So over in September then, after this long process, we discussed this back and forth, and Sloan Realty came forward with an offer for the $460,000, the appraised amount. So I'd like to read the motion that was made. The motion was made by Commissioner Williamson, seconded by Commissioner Rowell, to direct the town to proceed pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160A-262 to publish a notice of the offer received from Sloan Realty of Ocean Isle Beach to purchase the property of the town located at 2 West 3rd Street for $460,670 and to receive upset bids in accordance with said statute. And we did publish that. We received no upset bids. So then we proceeded to sell the building.
Mayor Smith?
Yes, well, of course, I didn't have a vote in that, nor did I preside over that section of that meeting. But, it was that municipalities can only dispose of property in certain ways. This advertisement and upset bids solicitation, we thought would bring us the best offer. It is what worked up here on the 240 acres where we started out at just over $6 million and finally signed a contract for $11 million. This did go for appraised price. It was not sold at this meeting. It went to for advertisement. This agenda was published a week before we knew the hurricane was going to hit. The town works until we have to evacuate. So this was the normal course of business until we had to evacuate. No special meeting, no time frame to have any hidden agendas. There was a public workshop the night before that meeting, and the question came up. So it was known that this was coming up, and anybody had the opportunity to make an upset bid.
And yes, I would make the same decision today.
Thank you. Just a couple more. This goes for mayoral challenger Lee Simmons. My question is regarding the beach flag warning system that you're proposing. How many are you proposing for the island? Who is responsible for changing the flags? I'd imagine it is required all year, every day as conditions change. Where does the type of condition come from? Is it NOAA, National Weather, etc.? Is there additional liability for the town? For example, if the condition changes and the flag is not changed and some type of accident occurs.
Beach safety must be a top priority of Ocean Isle, and I've done exhaustive research about how it is handled in beach communities along the East Coast. Much of that information is found on my website. As stated, a 3x5 flag will fly at each of our 25 public beach accesses. With permission, I would also like to have them at both pier private accesses as well as on the pier itself. These flags will also fly on our ATVs during season, daily from April 15th to October 1st. These are the months that people can be in the water without a wetsuit. The town of Ocean Isle Beach will merely be disseminating information that comes from NOAA and the National Weather Service, much like when we issue hurricane information. Ocean Isle Beach carries a $5 million aggregate insurance policy, and legal counsel in other towns claim no additional liability. I've not been given an opportunity to meet with Ocean Isle's legal counsel. Flags will be set up each morning.
Thank you. This question is directed to Mayor Debbie Smith and Wayne Rowell. At the height of the COVID pandemic, Governor Cooper set a date for the state to begin opening up again, including shore points and vacation rentals. Ocean Isle decided to open a full week earlier and become the first island in the state to do so. Why was this decision made, and why did you feel waiting the extra week would be so detrimental to Ocean Isle? Mr. Rowell, we'll begin with you.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. Yes, we were under tremendous pressure from both homeowners and people that own property here, both the residents and the renters, to open the island back up since they'd been in lockdown for so long. They were ready to come to the beach. Residents wanted to get back out on the beach because we had closed the beaches because of COVID. We figured that people would be outside. If they were going to be out on the beach, they'd be outside in fresh air. So after much discussion and consternation, we decided to go ahead and reopen the beaches, reopen the town. And additionally, the COVID numbers in our zip code at that time were not that high.
Thank you. Mayor Smith?
Yes, there's one inaccurate statement in that question. The governor never closed the beaches, nor did he put a ban on short-term rentals. That was done by the individual municipalities themselves. So that was not a government order at all. And as a matter of fact, we banned all short-term rentals and even asked our motels to close down. By the state's guidelines, motels were essential businesses and did not have to close. But our motels complied because we asked them to. So I just want to make that clarification. Our numbers were down. It was not a big problem over here. We had as many, if not more people that wanted the beaches open instead of keeping them closed. We were outside, the weather was good, people could social distance and be out of their house and still social distance outside, which was at that time and still a better place to be and not be as subject to catching the COVID.
Thank you. And tonight's final question, if you can believe it or not, this one is for you, Mayor Smith. There's no evidence of an overwhelming response from the Ocean Isle Beach community for a new community center, nor significant support for the recent concept community center. The 2018 survey has rich feedback on the existing community center. If elected for another term, how would you act on the 500 plus resident responses from the 2018 survey, I'm assuming? Specifically, how would you act at the request regarding the existing community center?
Well, that survey was not sent out asking, what do you want to see done in the present Old Town Hall? That was not what the survey said. It said, what would you want to see in a community center? And that's what we solicited opinions for. We took the information that came from those surveys, and we had to have somewhere, we did hire an architect to look at our existing structure and say, can we accomplish this in this structure? And his survey and professional recommendation was, you are wasting your money on a building that age, built to residential standards, to try to make it a commercial type facility for gatherings. So we did employ him to give us a concept, to come back to the public to say, what do you think what else do you want to see, and where do you want to go? There has been a lot of requests for gathering spaces for the residents on Ocean Isle and for the people to have places to do indoor activities.
Thank you. Please, audience, if you would join me in a warm round of applause. Well done. And on behalf of the Ocean Isle Beach Property Owners Association, I have to thank you for your incredible attitude and enthusiasm tonight. This was actually quite a civil gathering. It's a free exchange of ideas. This is how democracy is at its best. Candidates, I think you handled yourself well. You were poised, you were measured, you were thoughtful, your answers were meaningful, and I think that it will help our community to decide who their next slate of leaders should be. So again, thank you on behalf of the Ocean Isle Beach Property Owner Association. Thank you guys, and don't forget to vote.
Thank you, Ernie.